Okay, so there are basically two completely different things going on when you're trying to learn how to do a front squat. The first is what's going on with your lower body, and the second is what's going on with your upper body. And so we're going to split those up completely. And with the lower body, she doesn't even need that bar. So she's actually going to put her arms out front straight like Frankenstein, and that's only for balance reasons. And we'll come back to that a little bit later and explain why that's actually extremely relevant for what's going on with the upper body. But for now, we're just going to pretend that she is in fact Frankenstein, or rather Frankenstein's monster. If you want to get the story correctly. So she's now going to squat down, and I'm going to tell you the three, and only three things you need to think about in the lower body part of a front squat. The most important, bar none, is that her weight is on her heels right now. That's right, not on her toesies. She has got her weight on her heels. The second most important thing is that she is trying, even though this is technically not possible, she is trying to get her hip bone over her ankle bone as much as possible. That is very different than what you've usually heard about squatting, because there's other versions of squats where your goal is to sit back into a chair or onto a box or whatever else that they're having you do. That is not relevant to a front squat. With a front squat, you want your hip bone as close to your ankle bone as you can possibly get it. She can stand up now, just to give her a break. But that idea, why don't you go ahead and sit down into that front squat and or rather, sit down in a front squat wrong. Like, try to sit backwards so we can get that idea. See, that is very relevant to other types of squatting. That is not what you do in a front squat. Now, if she shifts back, so you notice how much her hip bone went forward, and notice how much lower she just got. Also, notice how much more upright her torso got when she did that. All these things are good. We want that for a front squat. So go ahead and stand up again, and then sit back down, this time just like you would a normal front squat. So she goes largely straight down with that butte. And there is something going on here too that you've probably heard about. Her knees are over her toes. I mean, they're like way far forward there. This is good. It's how far forward they go has everything to do with how long your upper and lower legs are, the bones there. So we're not going to get freaky deaky about where exactly, how many inches forward or backwards in front of or behind the toe the knees are. We don't really care. But your focus is on those hip bones and your ankle bones. You want the hip bone over on top of the ankle bone as much as you possibly can. It's not technically possible for most of us. She has really long femurs, so that's definitely never going to happen for her. But it is way farther forward, that hip bone, than it would be in another variant of a squat. Now, the very last thing you have to think about, other than your heels being down and your hips being as close over your ankles as you possibly can, is spread your knees wide. So if she didn't do that, go ahead and let them cave in. That right there, that's horrible. And it's horrible largely because you're just going to end up with a whole lot of knee pain. This is not a good position for your knees to be in. You're going to end up with all kinds of wonky problems going on with your knees over time if you squat like that on a consistent basis. I'm not so worried about your absolute maximum reps. Yeah, you'll probably come in a little bit. But most of the time when you squat, you should be able to flare your knees out as much as you possibly can so that the knee is tracking over the foot. That is, if we go kind of a side view here, well, that bar's a little bit in the way, but you can see how the knee is pointing in the same direction as the toes. So I don't really, however much your toes are either pointing forward or slightly out to the side, I don't care about that so much. I do care that your knees point in the exact same direction as your toes. So again, let's go over it one more time. Why don't you squat up? And then as she squats down, let's just try to focus on, go ahead and squat up and down just a couple of times, and we'll focus on the main thing. She stayed on her heels the whole time. Her hips are largely over her ankles as much as they can be. Again, she's sitting straight down, not back. Sitting straight down, not back. And finally, when she squats up and down, as she goes down, her knees flare outwards so that the knees are pointing in the same direction as the toes. All of this does a whole lot of good things. Most importantly, as usual, safety. All right, I promised you guys something about Frankenstein, and here it is. We are going to discuss the three most important things about a front squat. That is what's going on with your upper body. So we talked about the lower body, the three most important things there. Now we got three big old awesome things to learn about what's going on with the upper body. The most important, hands down, or hands off as it were, is this one. And we're going to call it the Bar on the shoulders, not in the hands, not because that's a good name, it's a horribly boring name, but it is ridiculously accurate because it's literally true. The bar here should never be on inside your hands when you're doing a rack with a front squat. Instead, it should be resting on your shoulders. So we're going to do a little Frankenstein trick to prove exactly why that is or how that is. So Tamara's going to go ahead and just get the front squat rack like she normally would, come back a little bit. And now watch what she's able to do, and watch when she does this, pay very close attention to her upper arms. Now she's going to Frankenstein it out. Boom! Very good Frankenstein. The bar didn't move. The bar was totally in the right spot still. Her upper arms were in a basically identical position. The only thing that changed was her hands came off the bar and her lower arms went forward. Other than that, nothing actually changed. That is extremely important. In other words, when your hands are out front like that in the Frankenstein position, that's the correct position for the front squat in almost every way. The only thing that's different is that you're actually going to get your hands back onto the bar. So this time, she's going to rack it and keep the bar this time. All right. So there she is. She's got her bar resting on her shoulders, not in her hands. And now let's be really clear about this. Look at her hands. They're barely on at all. I mean, her pinky's not even under the bar. Look at that. Thumb's barely touching it. It's just the fingers are kind of barely underneath the bar. That's all that's necessary. You do not need your hands around the bar. In fact, it's for most of us, that will be impossible. If instead, why don't you go ahead and grip that bar and do it wrong. So now she's going to do what most of you are doing all the time when you catch your cleans or when you grip a bar to do a front squat. Look at this. She's gripping the living bejesus out of that bar. Now, look at her upper arms. Look how much pointed downward her elbows are. That, if she let go of her hands right now, which she's not going to do, but if she did that, yeah, the bar would just fall off. She couldn't Frankenstein with that position. If you're gripping the bar super tight, what that means, without a doubt, unless you are crazy mobile, and a few of you are, I know, you're going to say, yeah, but I can do that. Well, that's you, and that's great, and you're so awesome. But most of us can't do this. I certainly can't. The vast majority of lifters are totally incapable of gripping the bar tight and, at the same time, having their upper arms in that Frankenstein position. So now she's going to do it correctly so that you have a good model to work off of. There we go. Look how high those elbows are. That upper arm now is back into the Frankenstein position, and the bar is able to rest squarely on her shoulders. The second most important thing we're going to call big chest. And we're saying this not because we actually care that much about what your chest is doing during a front squat, but rather we care what's going on with your back. So what she's going to do is she's going to, right here, she's in her just normal walking around, hanging around at the park sort of thing. And now she's going to show off at the beach and puff up her chest. Boom! Nice. Check out what just happened to her back. Now go back to the other position. That's her just sort of being way too relaxed in the chest department, and her back is way wimpy. Now lock it in. All she did was she thought about sticking that chest up as high as she could get it, and it automatically took care of a whole lot of stuff in her back. Look how athletic that position is now versus, go back to the other one. Yep, that right there is, I've been hanging around typing on a keyboard on Facebook for 3 hours straight. Not good. Now puff the chest back up. Boom! Athletic, baby! All right, now she's going to do the same thing, but this time holding a bar. Now again, this position, like almost everything else we're teaching you, is for two reasons. One is because you'll actually lift more weight and be stronger. But the second, and hands down most important, is you will be safer. So here she is in a, her back's okay. It's not like super rounded in the wrong direction or anything, but it certainly doesn't look super awesome and athletic. Now she's going to puff her chest back up. Boom! Look at that. Now she's rocking. That is a position in which she can lift some big old monstrous weights and do so in a really safe way. All right, and lastly, we are going to do something called drive with the elbows. Now, we talked a lot about where the elbows are pointing and what was going on with the upper arm when we showed you that Frankenstein position or the bar in the shoulders, not in the hands. But what happens when you actually go down and do a squat is that your elbows are almost invariably going to tank. They're going to go right down, and you're going to lose your Frankenstein position. And a great way to avoid that is to drive up with your elbows at all times. So the lower you get, the more your elbows go up. That sounds like a crazy over-exaggeration. The truth is it's going to just save you from losing the bar forward. So here she's going to go ahead and rack that bar. Now keep in mind what's going on. Let's just go back over the stuff that we've already learned. So there, she's got that bar on her shoulders, not in her hands. Total Frankenstein position going on with the upper arms. Her chest is up and big. She's super athletic position here. And now she's just going to front squat down. She goes down, and look at that. She maintained that entire time those high elbows. She still got that Frankenstein position. She squats back up. Oh, see, like that's going down. Horrible. Yeah, that, you're going to lose the bar. And anything super heavy, it's not going to be your legs that give out. It'll be your rack position. So we don't want that to happen. We're trying to work our legs here. We're not trying to work your elbows. So as she goes down, she keeps those elbows up. Look at that. And then she's down, and she comes up. She drives up with those elbows. Boom! So it almost, you can think about it that way, like when you're coming up, you don't think about anything else going on with your body. You just think about drive your elbows up into the ceiling. So she comes down, elbows remain high, and then she just drives her elbows up into the ceiling. There we go. Awesome.